One other thing you might notice when I'm sanding, I don't go back and forth. I like to hold it like this and just do one stroke. It gives me a better feel for what I'm sanding and a better ability to control how I'm sanding. I'm using very aggressive sandpaper. This is like 60 grit. And this way I can just do one long stroke. But it takes off the material nicely, but I'm also, if I'm sanding like this, I could be going round and round like that, which is going to make it uneven. But if I go like this, I'm watching the two surfaces, making sure they're staying flat together, and then I have a nice flat edge across the whole block, instead of accidentally angling it or tapering it too much. Here's the final sanded Aileron hinge block. You can see the taper along this edge right here, and I also had to taper this edge here to be flush with this rib along there. So when I slide this block in here, you can see it has a nice fit, snug in there. That'll glue in solid, and that's really the key element, is having as many surfaces touching one another without any gaps to give you the greatest strength possible when you glue everything together. And we'll continue on with gluing the rest of the hinge blocks in. This one here, these here, and then finally this one here and here. This one's larger because there's going to be a control horn on this hinge block as well. Just to help visualize and understand better, I just roughly put the servo for the aileron where it's going to be, and I also put a control horn down here. And essentially what will happen is that'll be mounted on this block, which is the reason for making it larger. And what we'll end up doing is there'll be a control rod that connects the servo to the control horn down here, and obviously when that actuates the servo back and forth, it's going to push the control horn to move the aileron up or down, like that. So that was the reason for cutting larger, to accommodate for the control horn and to attach on the hinge block on the side and on the side with that smaller block here. Working on the aileron hinge blocks here, you can see how we're going to have to sand down a lot of this. So just to give yourself a reference, mark that side and then mark the back side here as well. Now you have something to go by with how much you're going to have to sand off of this. And then also don't forget, you're going to have to bevel this surface, and if there's an angle here against this surface, bevel that as well to match this surface. You can see there's a gap in here, so we have to sand this down on this end, so that's going to meet, otherwise that makes it flush. So we have to sand this down on this end to make that meet up with this rib and be flush. We're looking for complete uniformity and contacting as many surfaces to give us the most strength possible. Now that we've marked the aileron hinge block and we can see how much material we have to remove on the top here, go ahead and use your hobby knife to whittle that down to get fairly close to that line, and save yourself a lot of sawdust that you'll create by trying to sand it. I mean, it's a piece of balsa, so it wouldn't take long to sand it down, but I prefer to eliminate as much sawdust as possible when I'm working and get as close as I can with cutting the wood off at the beginning. Okay, as you can see, I've cut down a fair amount of the material based on what's left here. All I did is take my X-Acto knife with a number 11 blade and I cut down until I got as fairly close to this line as I feel comfortable getting to with the blade, and now I'll sand the rest down, which won't take very long at all. The Aileron hinge blocks are now all glued in place, including the horn installation mount block with the aileron block here. And now, to finish up the wing, I need to trim off any of the sheeting on the leading edge, along the ribs here, and on the tip rib here, W14. I'm going to trim all of this off. I'm going to use a X-Acto knife to cut along here and remove that material, and then I'll sand it smooth to be flush with all surfaces, leading edge here, and I'll trim and sand the spars to be flush with the ribs as well. And that'll get the wing ready for sheeting on the bottom surface here. And that's the next step.